Welcome to the Money Over 50 podcast, brought to you by Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue from Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. This information is general in nature and does not take into account your objectives, financial situation, or needs. Therefore, you should consider whether the information is appropriate for you and your personal circumstances. If you require personal advice, please contact Money Over 50 Financial Advisors. Here are your hosts, Dallas Davison and Michael Hogue.
Welcome to Money Over 50 with Dallas and Michael. Today's topic, how cash in your bank can change your behaviour. Dallas.
Thanks, Michael. This is a new little trick that I've come across in my financial planning journey. So there's a saying I think I've rolled out before about, and I've read it, psychologists say this, where they say all psychology can be boiled down to people either need to be loosened or tightened, and that's all there is to it. When it comes to people's attitudes towards money, I would say it's the same thing. So we don't want to get too much into the life coaching, psychology, counselling side of things because we're not equipped to deal with that. But a big part of our job is talking to people about how much should you be spending, and that comes in two different forms. So there are people that are spending more than they should, and that's not a moral judgment. It's just that from what they've told me they want to achieve in the future, they need to spend X amount now and save it and save Y amount. They're spending more than what they should be. Or they can afford to spend X amount and they're spending a number that is substantially less than X amount, even though they have said that they don't want to do anything different with that money. So what I've realized here, I spent years and telling people, telling clients, hey, you're spending too much. You should stop spending so much. And they'd come in 6 months later and say, hey, you're still spending so much. Stop spending so much. And you'd have that conversation again and again. And then the same thing would go the other way. Then the next client would come in and they'd be a serial underspender. And you'd be saying, hey, you can afford to do what you want. So just spend some more money. What I realized, and where I came across this, was actually in my role as the advisor for my parents. So, as you know, Michael, my parents were actually clients of yours before I started working for you 12 years ago now. So they've been good long-term clients of Lighthouse and now Money Over 50 for a long time. I took over as their advisor, 8 years ago. So I've spent 8 years saying to them, essentially don't worry about money. So again, if you know anyone, you know your parents. I know their lifestyle, what they need to spend in order to be happy, how much they've got in retirement savings, the position they're in. And I've been saying them for 8 years. You basically can afford to do whatever you want, knowing that they're not gonna spend more than they should anyway. So I've been trying to encourage them for 8 years to go, hey, if there's anything that you want to go and do, you should go and do that thing. If there's anything that you want to buy, go and buy that thing. You are going to. The only guidance that they've given me as my client is to say that we don't want to leave you any money, so we want to spend it all before we die. And so we say, well, if that's what you want to do, you're going to have to get busy. Move on. Yeah. So what I realized in the last 6 months is that what I was doing as their advisor that wasn't allowing them to do that was that I wasn't leaving them enough cash in the bank. Now, in my mind, as a technical financial planning, money in the bank, money in this super fund, money in this pension account, money in this overdraft facility tied to the property, it's all money. It's all one bucket of money for me. However, and I've realized this both ways, for the average person, and my parents, I think, see this the same way, if you go to spend money and there's not enough cash in the actual bank that you can not touch, but you can see and you can log in and get access to and transfer out and all the rest of it, you're never going to feel comfortable spending money. So if you've got 50 grand in the bank and you want to go and spend 40 of that on something, your instinct is going to be, well, I can't do that. I'll run out of money. I'll only have 10 left. And then what if, something happens and I need to put a new roof on the shed, or I need to do this, and we can't afford to do it. So what I'm now doing is just running them with more cash in the bank. From a technical financial planning point of view, it doesn't really make sense because that money would be better served, invested and growing and all the rest of it. But I'm now just having more cash in the bank so that then when they look at that, go to spend, maybe we want to go on this overseas trip for $30,000.
Yep.
They'll just go and do it because it's 30 grand coming out of 100,000 rather than coming out of 40,000.
You're a feeder.
I'm a feeder.
You're the equivalent. You're the equivalent of one of these people that gets in a relationship and feeds the other person up. Like you're paying more money into their bank account. What are they going to do? Eat some more?
Exactly.
So yeah,
that's exactly what I mean.
All jokes aside, that makes sense to me.
Yeah, and it's the same thing the other way around. And I think I had this more worked out the other way around. And we've said this from day one. It's like if we've got clients that we don't want to be spending money, we just take the money off them.
Yes,
and we don't take it off them. We set up we'll set up a regular BPay into their super fund, or we'll set up a regular transfer off their home loan. So if we're saying to people, we want you to spend $1,000 a fortnight less, the only way that we know that sustainably happens is that we don't leave the cash there and then hope that they come back in 6 months' time with an extra $13,000. What we do is set up that transfer to put that $1,000 into their super fund.
Yes.
So if we do that, the same thing applies the other way, where what's the reverse of a feeder? It's like when you're on a diet and you just get rid of all the junk food out of your house. You just go, there is this amount of cash in the bank. We've taken that top bit out. Whatever's left over, all of your expenses, we'll fight it out, and that is the amount that you will spend.
Yes, and for the listeners out there, you may not know this consciously, but there is a level of cash in the bank that you're happy with.
Yes. This is my thermostat theory of cash in the bank.
In an extreme, for some people, that's less than $100. Some people want to run really lean because they know that they'll just blow their money.
Yep.
If it's there.
Yep.
For other people, it's $100,000. I have some clients, the figure happens to be $70,000. So they've always sat at around $70,000. Yep. Recently, they built it up to $90,000. Yep. They knew they had to buy a new car.
Yeah.
They spent $40,000 on this new car. It's down to $50,000.
Yeah, they would have built it back.
And I said to them, they said, "Oh yeah, we don't have as much cash as we thought." I said, "I'm not worried." And they said, and we had this conversation. I said, "What?" They said, "Why is that?" And I said, "I know that you'll tighten your belts to get that back to $70,000." So they agreed with everything that I'd said. They were operating subconsciously.
Yeah.
And they had no idea why the figure was $70,000. It's just a figure that they like to see in their bank account.
Yeah.
So people will. You're right, Dallas. If there's not enough money in someone's bank account, those people will not spend that money. So if your parents, if the figure, I don't know what the figure is, but if it's $50,000,
and I haven't worked out the figure for them either. But it's just I'm just going to dial the figure up.
Like you said, they're never going to spend $40,000 on a holiday.
Yeah.
You would have to make them have $100,000 in there for them to spend $40,000 because they'd go. Just quickly, 100 less 40 is 60. I'm above my barometer. That works for us. That's we feel like we aren't, I guess, running too lean there or overspending.
Yeah, and it's interesting you say that about different. Like I've got two clients. One's figure is 500,000. So they run a business and run a primary production business in the past, and so they're used to droughts and bad years and all the rest of it. So even though this situation has changed, they don't feel comfortable with less than $500,000 cash in the bank, which is astronomical amount for my. And in their case, they can afford to do that. I think I've used their example as one where they've got enough in other retirement savings that is basically they're giving up the returns on that money. In theory, it's way too much in cash, but it's fine for them because they can afford to do it. Whereas someone else might say, my figure's $500,000.
Well, I have a client that's under $1,000. Yeah. So he got divorced later in life and was not starting again, but starting below where he thought he would be starting for.
Yeah.
Any money that he's a consultant and he's also in the Army Reserves. And any money that comes into his bank account, he just pushes into his super fund. Yep. So he's always operated that way.
Yep.
And as a consequence, he's actually caught up. But if there's more than $1,000 in there, he pushes into his super fund because he knows money's coming to him at the moment like a clock.
Yep.
So the clock is ticking, and as each hand ticks, he gets paid per fortnight.
Yep.
and it's been nice and consistent. So he's just been getting it swept straight into his super fund. So
the other one that I've got is I wouldn't say client. It's not a paying client. It's actually a family friend, and it's a bit of a love job that I'm doing for them. Their figure is negative $70,000.
Negative $70,000.
So they've got about $78,000 worth of credit card debt and personal loans and that kind of thing. And I've found this before, where I did help them out a little bit a while ago, just with some budgeting stuff and how to clear some of this debt. We did all that, and you've had the same experience with clients where we've cleared that debt. Great, yes, we've got on track. This is how you're going to clear that debt over the next however long. Invariably, that number goes back to where it was. That's their thermostat. That's their comfort level.
They have to be in debt.
They have to be in debt, and it has to be to the tune of around that amount. Plus or minus a bit. But so in that case, I've kind of gone. We're looking at different options for retirement income.
Hey, we're all sick in different ways.
We're all sick in different ways. I mean, I spent an hour thinking about $160 pajamas. So who am I to judge anyone else's? And that's the thing is, I guess, like you say, we're all sick in different ways. This is, I find, a really fascinating one because it is completely separate from the technical financial planning part of how much cash should I hold. So when people say, how much money should I have in the bank versus how much should I have invested in super, whatever, there is the financial planning answer, and then there is the you as an individual and what are you actually going to, practically, what are you going to do? So my two takeaway points from this is number one, if you listen to this, have a think about what is your figure. And there's probably a lot of arguments with couples here where one has a certain figure in mind and the other one has a figure in mind. And so if one member of couple needs 50 grand in the bank to be comfortable and the other one needs $1,000 in the bank to be comfortable, and there's $40,000 in the bank, the one that only needs 1,000 is going, this is great, it's party time, let's go and buy a car, let's go on a holiday.
We've got to spend this money because it's going to go off.
Yeah,
it's going to go bad if we don't spend it.
We've got to get it back down to that $1,000 mark. And the one whose figure is 50 is going, how can we eat? Like we can't possibly. We should be living on rice and beans for the next month until we get that figure back up. So the first thing to think about is what's your figure, and you've probably never thought about it in those terms. No one, I think, has. Is how much do you need in the bank in order to feel comfortable and to be able to make calm and rational decisions around your money. The second one is, do you, knowing that figure now, the second part of this thinking is, do you want to be spending less or spending more? And it sounds like a silly question because everyone says they want to spend less, but if you're someone who knows that you can actually afford to spend more and that you should be spending more and that there are things that you would get enjoyment out of that you should be spending money on, but you can't find a way to force yourself to do it, you use those two figures to come up with a plan there. And that's exactly what I've done with my parents, where you go, let's pick the figure where I think that they're comfortable. If I want them to be spending more than they currently are, it's easy. You just keep tipping money in on top of that.
Yep.
And as the money comes in on top, that way that they're giving them the best chance possible to actually be able to feel like they can go and spend that money. So if you want to be spending more, it's easy. Just keep tipping cash in on top of that figure that you've got in the bank of what you're comfortable with. If you want to be spending less, it's easy. Just get rid of money out of there. Get rid of that cash out of the bank. And what you'll find is that you will tighten your belt, as you said with your clients. You will find a way to squeeze everything else down to make it build back up to that point. So think about what your figure is and what your comfort level is, and then think about whether you should actually be spending less or more than what you are now, and then adjust the amount of cash you got in the bank based on that.
Thank you for listening to the Money Over 50 podcast with Money Over 50 financial advisors. For more information and resources, visit the Money Over 50 website, mo50.com.au. We look forward to catching up again soon.